Welcome back to the 2 Owls podcast. I'm your host, Caden, and I'm joined by my fellow co-host.
Grant and Caden, did you know that I'm going to die at the age of 35?
Oh my gosh, Grant. Little dramatic. Little
Right.
dramatic.
So, guys, we are going to be
But not
talking
inaccurate.
about...
Not totally inaccurate.
No, exactly.
Here.
Exactly. It's not inaccurate.
It's feasible.
It's feasible. Hopefully, I'll still be living on the East Coast because the topic that we're going to talk about is about Apophis. The Apophis asteroid, it has a couple close calls with Earth. But
specifically, the actual scientific name for it is 99942.
Yep.
Apophis.
Yep. And so Apophis has a couple close calls with Earth, but we're here to tell you guys that you probably should be a little bit more concerned about whether or not Apophis might actually make impact with Earth.
Actually, it's very viable, guys, and we're not like being like, oh my gosh, this is like the movie 2012, or like being like crazy. Like this is actual like something that if you guys were to go look at NASA's website and all this other stuff, they downplay it. But if you listen to guys like Neil deGrasse Tyson and all that, like it's very feasible that this could hit. And so Grant, what is the date? So there's a few dates to keep in mind. What is the first date?
So the first date we have the first close call encounter that could actually put Apophis on collision with Earth is on April 13th of 2029.
That's a Friday, by the way. So on Friday the 13th.
Oh, great. Awesome.
Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Great luck, right?
Yeah. Now, Grant, before we go into like the details of Apophis, what does the name Apophis mean?
Apophis actually means chaos, the god of chaos. It's found primarily in Egyptian and Greek mythology, and it just basically means chaos. So it's kind of interesting that it's kind of literally named after the god of chaos, kind of foreshadowing its possible date with Earth on these certain dates that we're going to be talking about, and the certain possible unfortunate events that might actually happen if it makes impact with Earth.
So guys, on April 13th of 2029, Friday the 13th, Apophis will make a pass in the Earth's atmosphere. Now, I believe if you listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson, you can see it in, I believe he said Europe.
Not in the Earth's atmosphere, for reference. It's right outside of the Earth's atmosphere, but
right outside of the Earth's atmosphere. Yes.
It is only going to be 20,000 miles away from the surface of the Earth, and that is actually closer than most of our satellites.
And Grant is correct about that. I've also seen Grant where they give a span of like 18 to 20,000 miles. So,
literally, I mean,
it's the closest object to ever come that's ever been like scientifically known. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, obviously, scientists say asteroids killed the dinosaurs, whether you believe that or not.
Yeah.
But this is the first time that what a NASA describes as an NEO, a near Earth object.
Although there was an asteroid that was pretty close to Earth. I believe it was 86,000 miles away that I saw. It's called UL-20 or UL-11, and it passed by Earth in 2011, and it was about 86,000 miles away from Earth. But that is like so much further out compared to Apophis. Yeah. And plus, even though it's bigger than Apophis, it wasn't much of a threat either, because there was like a 0% chance of it actually hitting Earth. But I'm going to bring that asteroid in particular up again later on when we talk about how Apophis could possibly actually hit Earth.
Now, Grant, so with Apophis being the first asteroid to ever come within 18 to 20,000 miles that known science of like today's modern science is known about, what differentiates it from the rest of the asteroids, comets, and other stuff? Like, what's special about Apophis?
So primarily the thing that makes Apophis special is how closely in orbit and how close it is in terms of like the amount of time it takes to orbit the sun. So like for instance, it takes about 300 and I believe 36 days. Let me check. Yeah, it's 323 days, 323.6 days to make it around the entire solar system. Now, obviously, it takes 365 days for the Earth to go around the solar system, but this is because Apophis is orbiting in a oval shape. It's also closer to the sun than Earth is at its closest point to the sun, 0.746 AU. AU just means how close it is to something in terms of Earth's measurement. So, like for instance, 1 AU would be from the Earth to the sun. So it's going to be a little bit closer to the sun during its orbit. Even now, like actually right now, it's really close to the sun currently at around this time of year. But then later on, it's like about 1.1 AU away from the sun at its furthest point. And that's what makes this in general more special compared to a lot of other asteroids that are being tracked, because this asteroid is one that follows so closely to Earth's orbit.
Yeah, it's very close to Earth's orbit.
Yes, and
Which
so
actually,
go on.
the interesting fact about that, Grant, is how fast is Apophis traveling currently?
Apophis is actually traveling at an alarming rate. Like it's like 800,000 miles an hour. It's literally insane. Oh, not 80,000 miles an hour. Sorry about that. That was my bad.
Oh, you're good, man. You're good.
And
So it's traveling
that
at 80,000 miles per hour.
Yeah, and it's traveling 4 times faster than the International Space Station above Earth. So, like, for
Wow.
reference, everyone, the International Space Station stays in orbit and does not fall down to the Earth because it's traveling at around 17,000 miles an hour, which is insanely fast. I don't even know how astronauts do it. Like this is why they can barely walk when they come back down to Earth. Like it's insane. But Apophis is going 4 times the amount of that speed, nearly 4 times the amount of that speed. So when it comes in close contact with the Earth in 2029 on April 13th, it's going to do a couple things. So the first thing that could happen is it enters the keyhole. And Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about this. And Caden, I know that you were actually the one that talked to me about this primarily. So how about you tell them what you told me about what Neil deGrasse Tyson said about the keyhole?
So the keyhole is a span of space that when an NEO comes within a certain range of the Earth, the keyhole is what astronomers call basically it's a section of space that if an object passes through the keyhole, it'll get caught in the Earth's gravitational rotation, and it won't hit specifically on the day that it passes, but at a later date in time, it'll end up orbiting in its orbit around the Earth. It'll get caught in the gravity and everything, and eventually the orbit will smack it right into the Earth. Now,
Exactly. And a couple dates for that would be 2036 and 2068.
Yep, April 13th, 2036, and April.
Oh, not April 13th. It's actually, I believe it's March.
Is it March? Okay,
Yeah,
but it's
March
April.
27th,
April
2036.
It is April 13th for the year 2030.
2029. But for 2068, they don't have a date because they don't have enough data. I believe.
Yeah, but so basically, what Neil deGrasse Tyson said is if it goes through the keyhole on April 13th of 2029, if it passes through the keyhole 7 years to the day, so on April 13th, 2036, it'll impact the Earth. Now, the keyhole for this specific asteroid is a span of space that is 600 to 700 meters, which, guys, it's about 1,900 feet. Um, so if
Yeah.
it goes through the keyhole, um, 7 years to the day it'll hit the Earth. Now, uh, rough estimations on it have given it a 1 in 250,000 chance of actually going through the keyhole,
which is
and
actually
the other
pretty
one
low.
is 1 in 150,000
Yep.
chance of it going through the keyhole. Um,
And those are really
and-
low statistics because it's not zero. It's
no,
like,
it's not. It's
it's
not a
insane.
zero.
Because, and this is the other thing too that a lot of people have talked about when it pertains to Apophis possibly hitting the Earth, is when it comes to asteroids in space. The Angry Astronaut actually talks about this a little bit, and this is where I got some of the information about Apophis. But this YouTuber talked about the fact that like asteroids are so hard to track because with things like the Earth, Jupiter, Saturn, the sun, technically, the sun doesn't have an orbit, but it does move because it is, after all, in the middle of space. But all of these different bodies in our solar system can be tracked very detail oriented, like in terms of like
Mhm.
being able to know, oh, the Earth is going to be here in 100 years, the Earth is going to be there in 1,000 years. Like they can do all that math ahead of time. But the thing they can't do is do that math ahead of time for asteroids because they cannot see all of the debris in space that an asteroid can hit. And
Correct.
it's so easy for an asteroid to easily get off course if it is hit by even an object that is 2 feet across.
Yeah. I mean, it would literally be got so for instance, right now, like let's say right now it's on its, rotation and it's on its path, right? And let's say as of right now it's not supposed to go through the keyhole. I mean, if it just moves centimeters in the span of 5 years, it'll eventually it'll be enough time and rotation and everything else to actually make it go through the keyhole. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, it's not. This is something that's not being reported because I don't think they want like mass panic or whatever. But and you're not really seeing any. At least me and Grant's done a lot of research on this. I have not seen anywhere where they're talking about, hey guys, just so we can get it to zero, let's figure out how to move this sucker. Now, Neil deGrasse Tyson has talked about it,
Yeah.
where so there's Americans always have a solution to something that's going to hit the earth, and he talks about it. Well, let's just blow it up. Well, that's a problem because if you blow it up and it goes into chunks, now you have little asteroids impacting the earth and creating more damage and more chaos and more death and all that other stuff that goes with that. Whereas if you can just figure out a way to move it, like figure out where the keyhole's at, and move it a substantial amount of distance between the keyhole, uh, so that it doesn't go through that. That's all it would need. And
Yeah.
even Neil deGrasse Tyson said all you would need to do is just bump it a few centimeters
Exactly. And I
for
don't
it
know when
to
that
ensure it
video
doesn't go.
exactly. And I don't know when that interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson was made, but
It was
there
about 6 years
was
ago.
okay, yeah. So if it was 6 years ago, this is even more recent stuff because he would have mentioned this if it was if this interview was filmed like a couple years ago. But on
Yeah.
October 11th of 2022, NASA was actually able to test as to whether we had the capability to move an asteroid. So for reference, a couple years before this mission, we sent up this satellite spacecraft, whatever you want to really call it. It's not really a real spacecraft, but it had propulsion and stuff like that. It was basically a rocket. But the idea was that they wanted to target an asteroid. And this asteroid is called Dimorphos. And Dimorphos, it doesn't pose any threat to Earth, or it never did. But the thing with it was that Dimorphos was an asteroid that they wanted to test as to whether, oh, could we move this thing? So that they could see, oh, could we move possible asteroids that might make a collision with Earth? And on October 11th of 2022, they were actually able to hit this asteroid and actually change its trajectory. And it wasn't until recent, because like it hit in October 11th, 2022, but they weren't able to tell if the trajectory was changed until I think it was like last year, I believe, or something like that. But it was interesting though, because it actually proved that, hey, we have the possibility of actually moving Apophis if we have to. But the problem is that there's not a lot of people who are actually interested in actually figuring out if we need to.
No, because what's going to happen is they're waiting to see if it even goes through the keyhole. And I have a feeling that if it goes through the keyhole, then it's going to be a 7-year race to see, okay, we need to move this sucker.
100%.
Now,
And plus, think about this: in proportion to the actual, asteroid Apophis, you would only need a spacecraft that is like 20 tons, which is like almost nothing compared to the asteroid. So all you would need is that much mass hitting the side of that thing, and that would change its entire trajectory away from Earth.
now, why can't we blow it up? And I kind of mentioned this. The reason you can't just blow it up is because, well, what if it creates? So, guys, Apophis is the size of the Rose Bowl, and like the way scientists describe it as is like it's literally if you've ever seen an egg in an egg cup, it would fit perfectly in the Rose Bowl. So it is a pretty big pretty big
Oh, it's
asteroid.
massive. It's
It's yeah
1,115 feet long, and it's about 3 football fields across. Like, it's
yeah
huge. And
yeah
like, think about this: the Big Ben in England, or in the UK rather, it's only 315 feet high. That's nothing. Like, think
no
about that. Like, and that's just proportion. Like, it's insane. Uh, or not Big Ben, but the Elizabeth Tower. But it just goes to show that, like, this thing is huge, and it will cause massive devastation. And we'll talk about the effects that it would have if
here
it
in a
actually
minute.
hits in a second. But
So basically, this thing. So with it being that big, if you were to blow it up, you would have to blow it up to smithereens, which then it would just create this beautiful meteor shower. Um, However, if you, you end up blowing it up and it goes and it breaks up into a few different chunks, or let's say two chunks, now you have two major space rocks that are going to impact, and that's bad. Um,
exactly.
so let's get into the fallout if it does end up going through the keyhole.
Yeah. And I was also
And
going to add, too, sometimes we don't know what asteroids are made out of. And if we did
mhm,
nuke it, let's say, um, it might be actually stronger than the nuke, and it might not actually even work. So, like,
yeah, because asteroids can be comprised of iron and
literally,
all this other stuff.
literally all
Yeah.
iron sometimes. Yeah. So, yeah. So let's say it hit Earth. Now, predictions are
So
saying that it would hit the Pacific Ocean, right?
yep. So it would hit the Pacific Ocean, and it would go to a depth of 3 miles in the ocean. And once it goes into the depth of 3 miles, it then would explode. And basically, obviously, guys, water displacement. If you place something in water, there's a ripple effect, right? So, like, if picture throwing a rock in like a bathtub or a pond, right? It's got to go. The water's got to displace. It's going to move. It's going to create waves. If you're standing on the shoreline, obviously, water's going to come up on the shoreline. So it'll go into a depth of 3 miles, and then it will end up exploding.
Yep.
Um, Once it explodes and once it hits, it's going to create multiple tsunamis. And I think the estimate right now is it would be about 40 tsunamis that are about 5 stories high. So basically, California is gone. Um, which
Literally.
I don't know. I
Another
don't know
one
if a
that's
lot of people are going to be
also,
upset about that, but
no, literally California gone.
yeah, California's gone. That's flooded. Now Neil deGrasse Tyson makes a joke. So because we know a bunch of years in advance, and even if it goes through the keyhole and there's no way we can stop it from impacting the earth, what we know, right? We have time to evacuate these places.
Yeah.
And Neil deGrasse Tyson says that nobody has to die. And he does say that, and then he goes, well, I'm going to correct myself. He said that two people will end up dying. You're going to have that one surfer that's trying to make his claim to fame, that's going to try and ride the wave, and then you're going to have a news reporter
Yep.
like, oh, let's get closer to the tsunamis, and
Let's
it's
get
like, okay,
closer.
well, so yeah, there's you see them
Literally.
on like you've seen them on like hurricane, like they're standing out at gale force winds that are
Yep.
literally moving trees, and these guys are holding onto a pole. It's really windy out here.
Yep.
No
Yep.
crap. Get back indoors.
No crap.
Like,
Yeah,
like
literally.
we believe you, man. You don't have to be out there. Just go back inside. It's all good. We
You know.
can we can go watch YouTube videos and TikToks and
Yep.
social media reels and see what people are looking at outside their window. You don't have to go stand out there.
Yeah, literally.
So
Quite
I
literally.
think there's going to be a third person that dies because there's going to be that stupid redneck with an American flag that's like, yeah, nothing can get me. Smash with a hit by wave. So.
No, he'll call it a government psyop. That's what he'll do.
So if
So
it hit, so it'll hit the Pacific Ocean,
yeah.
go to a depth of 3 miles, create 40 different
Yep.
tsunamis, and every tsunami will go further inland.
Once you're
So
done
event,
with the ocean, however, there's a 30% chance that it would hit land, and I'm going to talk about that after you finish what happens in the
so
ocean.
okay, so I mean, pretty much, I mean that's about it. I don't think right now. I didn't see if it hits the ocean. I don't see it creating like a dust cloud or nothing. It's just going to be tsunamis. Obviously, guys, because of water displacement. I mean, depending on where it hits in the ocean, and how far it goes down. I mean, there could be earthquakes, and
Oh,
obviously we
100%.
know earthquakes in one part of the globe can create tsunamis
Well, yeah,
in other parts of
it's
the
definitely
globe.
going to
So,
change some of the tectonic plates, like
oh yeah,
without a
no,
doubt.
it going down 3 miles in the water displacement. I mean, think about that. You have a massive rock the size of the Rose Bowl and so many stories high hitting the water at a very fast, alarming rate. I mean, yeah, it's going to smack. It's going to create
Yeah,
earthquakes. It's going to. I mean, tsunamis are like the least of your problems at that point.
literally.
You're going to have earthquakes. And it's again, it's not just California that's affected here too, because of water displacement,
Well,
and
you
because
have
it's hitting in the
Japan.
Pacific. You also have Hawaii,
Yep, Hawaii.
Taiwan,
Well,
so they're all gonna.
Hawaii's gone. Like it's gonna be wiped off the map. I'm sorry, guys. Like
Yeah,
it's done.
yeah.
There's no
A
way.
lot of your islands in the Pacific will be covered with water. I mean, I think the water would retreat, but again, water displacement. Now you have a larger
Yeah.
object in the water, and we all
Well,
see
this
like the
the thing
melting
is though,
polar ice
Caden. I
caps.
mean, think about it. A lot of cargo ships are about the same size of Apophis, and they have sunk. It doesn't cause too much water displacement, but
Well, they're
it would
also not
actually
hitting.
take a couple months for the water to return to its normal levels because of the mass size of the tsunamis.
Well, you're also no with something that size. No, this thing's bigger than most of your cargo ships,
Yeah.
and it's also hitting the water at an alarming rate of speed. So, I mean, it'll slow down in gravity and rotation and everything, but you're still talking about a big, massive, and then you're going to have the explosion that happens from it too, because once it hits
Yeah.
and goes down, it's going to break apart. So,
Yeah, and think about this. Like and this is I'm gonna tie it into like what would happen if it hit land, but it's most likely gonna hit the Pacific Ocean.
mhm.
So think about this. Whether or not it hits land or the ocean, it's going to be the equivalent of 2 gigatons of TNT. Now, what does that mean? Well, it is 20 times the amount of power compared to the biggest nuke that humanity has ever created, which is the Tsar
Which is the
bomb.
Tsar
Yep,
bomb. Yeah, in Russia.
exactly. And the Tsar bomb, yes, obviously it's a huge weapon of mass destruction.
That was classified as megatons,
Yeah,
correct?
yes, that was classified in megatons. It's not even 1 gigaton. It's
And now
only,
here's the other thing. The Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs, they were classified as kilotons. The
exactly,
Tsar bomb, Castle Bravo,
it's a
which is
100 kilotons.
Yep, Castle Bravo is another. It's a hydrogen bomb that was that the U.S. detonated, and Castle Bravo it was classified in megatons. So it
Yeah,
was more powerful than the kiloton bombs that we dropped on Hiroshima and
exactly.
Nagasaki. The Tsar bomb makes the Castle Bravo bomb look like a look like its little brother.
Literally.
So I
So, yeah,
mean,
and for
yeah.
measurements, the Castle Bravo, only 15 megatons of TNT. And the Tsar Bomba, the Tsar Bomba is 100 megatons. And that's 100,000
Now,
kilotons.
how many times? So, what's the difference between the Tsar bomb and Apophis hitting the the Earth. Grant, in
So
terms of that.
in terms of the initial impact, there's huge differences. So like the main difference is that when there is the initial impact, the actual oh sorry. The actual impact from the asteroid will be 3.3 miles across. And this is only the crater. Like this does not count anything else that will happen around where Apophis hits. So, the crater itself will be 3.3 miles across and
Wow.
1,600 feet deep.
Wow.
Insane. It's literally going to be like the size of a small sea. Like, absolutely insane. And let's say, and from this factoid, it would kill about 1.2 million people from impact, but that's only if it strikes somewhere where there's a low population of people. So
And
that's for
it's on
reference.
land too, correct?
Exactly. It's on land. Yeah.
So it's actually better if it hits water.
In some ways, some people say it's better if it hits land. Some people say it's better when it hits water, but
Well,
I think it's better if it hits water.
Land, it's going to be like a bomb going off.
Literally,
Water,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it'll create tsunamis and everything else, but and yeah, it'll create earthquakes and stuff. But at least you're not having. So the other thing about if it hits land, guys, you're gonna have debris go up into the atmosphere too.
Yep. Yep. And actually, the debris and dirt and everything else that will be flung up into the atmosphere will literally create an ice age for 2 years. So
it'll be
think about
mass
that.
global cooling.
Yeah, literally massive global cooling. So we don't even need to do any type of global warming initiatives.
So I guess Al Gore would be upset.
Yep. Apophis took his job. That's
Yeah,
why he
exactly.
didn't win. Then on top of it, think about this 241 decibels shockwave. So what does that actually mean? That's a lot more that's a lot more that's far more louder than almost anything ever played on Earth. It would shatter your eardrums instantly up to 15 miles away and damage your lungs. Like your lungs you would basically probably die from that, more than likely. And then not only that, but you have up to 100 miles of devastation just from this going off in
Wow.
total circumference.
Now, just to be clear, this is if it hits land, correct?
Yes, this is if it hits land. 100
Wow.
miles of devastation. And when this happens, it'll be there will be 8,472 mile an hour winds, even up to 10 miles away, and that's faster than all the winds on Jupiter. And
Wow.
yeah, and then 29 miles away, all homes would instantaneously be ripped off their foundation. Like, it's insane to think about. This is like apocalyptic type stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in a lot of ways, I would rather it hit the ocean because at least we can prepare for it and at least we can evacuate. But if this happens on land, an ice age will happen and there will be far more worse consequences to deal with at the end of the day. I mean,
and it's crazy.
It's insane.
It's crazy to think that that no one's like even remotely even like, hey, maybe we should just get this down to a 0% chance of it hitting. Like let's start figuring out a way to move this thing. But no, we're
No,
just
of
gonna
course
sit
not.
back.
We're just gonna chill. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Like the movie Don't. It's like the movie Don't Look Up on Netflix. Which again, this is something else I wanted to talk about. I found it ironic that a couple of years ago, and I think it was in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, Grant. I
yeah.
think this movie came out, but actually, I'll go look at it now. But this movie's about an asteroid, them finding an asteroid, and in the movie they only had 6 months to do something about it. But
Yep.
now it's, you know, we actually have a number of years before it's even supposed to make a pass on the Earth, and then we have another 7 years if it does go through the keyhole, which we'll know on April 13th of 2029. We will know if it's going to go through the keyhole or not, and then we have another 7 years to prepare on how to move it. But
Pretty
no,
scary.
we don't want to focus on trying to move it. We're just gonna wait until it happens. Yeah, no, it came out in 2021, Grant.
Literally, yeah.
Um, yeah, the movie came out in 2021, and nobody in the movie nobody took it seriously because everyone thought. And in fact, Grant, if you watch the movie,
Yeah, I've
they
watched the
were
movie.
going. Okay, so in the movie, they were going to blow it up and make sure. Okay, this thing never touches. Well, then some billionaire scientist genius decided, okay, well, let's take drones up. The drones will detonate it, but then it'll end up hitting certain parts of the earth. The damage won't be that bad, and they'll actually end up being able to mine the asteroids for good for materials.
Yeah.
That's what happened in the movie. And in the movie, the drones failed. Nothing went right, and it ended up hitting, and it did create a bad situation.
The
But
funniest
then the
part
rich
is that the president and all of the elites got to escape and go live on an alien planet.
yeah, they escaped in a yeah. So of course lead the rest of humanity to
Of course, yeah. It was
okay.
it was just a
The president left
funny
her own
movie, yeah.
son behind, by the way.
Yeah, you
In the
know.
movie. Jonah Hill Jonah Hill once again got screwed over.
Literally. Yeah, no, but that's kind of like what mostly we've seen about Apophis. So, Caden, what's your honest opinion? Do you think it's going to actually hit Earth in especially 2036, sorry?
Um, I mean, mine's more of a biblical stance. So, and I can explain that in a second here because that's going to be a little bit longer of an explanation. But Grant, what's your thoughts on it?
So, my primary thoughts, I personally, I don't know if it's necessarily connected to Revelation because I think I know where you're going to go with this. Um, but it might be. It might be. I'm not going to say whether it is or it isn't in terms of like the biblical sense, but in terms of like
Mhm.
reality and when I said that, I didn't mean the Bible isn't reality. Obviously, it's reality. But
Yeah.
what I meant to say was, in terms of like just like the practical events that are happening and stuff, I really think that it could even hit, based on what I've read and stuff, it could even hit in 2029 if it hits a big enough object. I mean,
Oh wow. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, obviously, yeah. I mean, we're still about what 5 years away, 4 years away
yeah,
from that. So
literally, exactly. And so like it's it's insane to think about the the seriousness of the situation because the only way we can find out if it's going to hit in 2029 in the first place is if uh, the earliest we will know is in 2027. And yeah, sure, we can prepare by then, but like, what are we doing in the meantime? Not very much, in my opinion. And then
mhm.
when it comes to 2036, if it goes through the keyhole in 2029, I don't think it would necessarily hit in 2036, but I definitely think it's going to hit in 2068.
Hey, I do have a solution on how we can move it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, let's just make a big cannon. We'll
Yeah.
stick Lizzo in it, and then we'll shoot Lizzo at them.
If anyone was offended, you're a liberal.
I'm sure Lizzo's big enough to move that thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So, hey, remember what I said? It only takes 2 feet. It's something that's 2 feet across, like
Exactly,
that's
and
more than
Lizzo's about
enough.
2 feet across. Yeah, so we're good. Lizzo's about 5 feet across, so
Literally, we're
we can
good. We're
totally.
good. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, no, if you're offended, you're a liberal. That's all I have to say. And plus, we're not fat phobic. It's literally a joke. Calm down, everyone.
We're Lizzo-phobic.
Yeah,
That's what we are.
basically.
Okay. Side note, Grant. Not to say I love this, but when Russia first invaded Ukraine, I specifically remember me and you, and I know where we were at. We were in the lounge of our dorm at the university we were attending, and
Yeah.
we're gonna leave that nameless, by the
Yep.
way.
Yep.
Um,
I remember that night,
we
dude.
we were and we were even if you're looking, Grant, from where you would go from the security office, because the security office was right in front of our dorm. If you walked in those doors, we were to the back left, where the hallway that separated the girls' dorm from the guys' dorm. We were there, but we were on the right side of that. And I'll never forget, the first thing we saw was Russia invaded Ukraine, and then people started making Lizzo memes, like drop Lizzo.
Wait, what was the context behind that? I don't remember why.
I don't know. I don't necessarily know why people were making Lizzo memes, but a bunch of Lizzo memes started
No,
across
I
the internet.
remember that, dude. No,
I
remember
remember.
during that night when Russia started to invade Ukraine, ABC News was like, and we'll come back right after this break. Or was it CNN? I think it was CNN. We'll come back right after this break. And then the country jingle song came on for an Applebee's commercial. Dude, oh my gosh. I might actually edit
But
in the audio from that and just put it in there for reference. Oh my gosh. But what's your take on it, Caden?
okay, so like I said, mine's more of a biblical stance on it. And when I first saw this, I actually went to the book of Revelation. And interesting fact enough, Revelation does talk about that God ends up making the stars fall at a certain point during the tribulation. And specifically, there's one that hits the earth. The angel like basically throws this what calls a star at the earth, and John was seeing a bunch of stuff at the time, so I'm not gonna say what it was, what it wasn't, but just kind of for a biblical reference, if Apophis hit land, um, it would kill about 1/3 of the Earth's population and stuff.
Well, especially
And
if
that
it hits
also
a
goes with,
city.
yeah. So it would kill about 1/3 of the Earth's population, and specifically in this part in Revelation, it does talk about that when the angel threw um, the star or the rock or whatever you want to call it at the Earth, it did wipe out about 1/3 of the Earth's
Yep.
population. So that was the interesting fact about that.
And
I find
Caden,
another
I wanted
interesting.
to add too is that the interesting thing about the about you saying that the angel threw the rock or threw the star rather at the
Hmm.
earth. If you go back in the NASA simulation for all these asteroids,
Hmm.
the date that it was found is in like 2004 when it was found. But if you go before 2004, you kind of ask yourself, how is this asteroid even flung into orbit in the first place? Because it was far out, even in the asteroid belt originally. And you kind of wonder, well, how did it even get trapped in like this orbit close to the Earth's orbit in the first place?
I know.
Exactly. And so, like, I wouldn't be surprised if it has some correlation with that, especially.
So that's kind of the first thing that the other thing that I found interesting was is that kind of takes place at the end of the 7 years, which if it was, which if again, please don't, guys, people that are listening, um, I am not saying that the year 2029 is going to start the tribulation. Okay, I'm not making that statement. I don't know the day nor the hour. However, there is signs in the heavens. Now, with that being said, I find it I don't believe in coincidences. And so I find it very interesting that from 2029 to 2036, that is 7 years. And this when in Revelation, when it's described hitting the earth, it's towards the end of the 7 years. And in 2036, it would be about towards the end of the 7 years, to be honest with you, when this would take place. It would be in April. So the seventh year of the if the again, hypothetically speaking, of course, I'm not actually giving the date. I'm just saying on a hypothetical, if the tribulation was to start in 2029, in 2036, it would be the last year of the tribulation, and that's when in the Bible it described it hitting. So I find that very kind of ironic almost, and I don't believe in coincidences. The other thing I find interesting is, and guys, I am not one to normally do this, but if you look at the actual name of Apophis, it's 9992. Now, I find it interesting that they used three nines in a row because if you just flip those nines upside down, it's three sixes. I don't know what compelled them to go put 999 in there, but it's very close to 666.
You know,
So, and
you
again,
wonder.
I'm not one of those I get you get those Christians out there that are like, "Oh my gosh, if you play this song backwards," or, it's like, okay, I'm not trying to be that guy, but I guess I am that guy right now. I'm like, I just I it's a if it's a coincidence, it's a very good one. I find it more ironic.
Listen,
So,
listen. It's in my notes. It's in my notes. I swear. Alex
I
Jones
just find
reference
it
if no one knows what that
Alex Jones
is.
from the Joe Rogan podcast a number of years
Yeah.
ago. But no, I find it ironic to say the least. Um, and yeah, like I said, it kind of I don't know. There's just too many correlations with it. Now, again, I did talk about that the Bible does give us a reprieve. Now, Trump will be if Trump wins, he'll start in 2025, and so he'll have 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028 is the next election year. Um, which right, Grant? Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah,
but
the next
right,
election year would be
2028.
2028. Yeah.
Yeah, because in 2029 it would start a new president. So,
I don't
but
know,
yeah,
man. The
I don't know.
coincidences.
The
It's quite
coincidence is very
interesting.
ironic.
A
Yeah.
coinkydink, if you ask me.
I mean, again, I said this in the last episode, and I said this in the first episode. I believe God gives us what we ask for. So, I mean, I think things are kind of lining up a little bit.
Yeah, just a little
you know,
bit. I also wanted to
just
add
a little.
the full meaning of Apophis because I didn't have it earlier. I only had the God of Chaos written down, but the full meaning of it is a demon serpent of darkness.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
No, I'm not even joking.
Hmm. That's
The long pause.
it's the irony for me, man.
Right? Oh
It's
yeah.
the irony for me.
100%. The irony, man. Man, it's special. This is an interesting topic, and again, no one's talking about it, and I think there's a reason for it.
Yeah, no one's talking about it.
Literally, and the only people who are talking about it are like astrophysicist nerds and honestly, honestly, people who are kind of like us, kind of like being like, oh, is this kind of related to Revelation? I don't know. It might be. So, it's very far few between that people actually mention it at all.
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
coincidences, don't you?
There's not a whole lot of people talking about it, and I think they're doing that to keep the mass hysteria down. But me and Grant don't abide by those rules.
Exactly. And we never will, for that matter. So, Caden, what do you think that we should do in terms of like, should we even prepare for it? I mean, like, in a spiritual
Pray,
sense, yeah, we should pray. Well, for our nation, especially right now,
pray.
pray for
I think
Israel
we
if you're
should.
listening to this, because
Yeah,
it's insane what's happening over there right now. I mean, Iran, what about 8 hours now ago? 8 hours ago, around like 4 or 3 p.m., they literally started to attack Israel with their missiles and stuff. It's like literally insane.
mm,
You know?
we got the dock worker strike, Apophis in a couple of years. I mean, what's next?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Don't you love how the US and the world went through this stage of quote unquote peace for a while, and now there's like a historic event happening every like 2 weeks now ever since COVID?
Yeah.
It's as if the bowls of judgment are being poured out. I wonder.
Hmm.
You never know, man.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Hey. Hmm.
You wonder,
We do.
if you guys listening have any comments, any reactions to anything that we said, make sure to follow us, like us, subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. And just share us with your friends and people who are interested in similar topics, because we're just going to be coming out with a new episode every single week. This one's a little late, but it's a work in progress. I think we're doing the best we can with what we have.
We do. We are. We are. And again, we appreciate you guys listening and following and stuff. This episode, Grant, we'll put it, when it goes on YouTube, we'll put our social media names and stuff, and where you can find us in the YouTube description and stuff.
No, that sounds good. And then keep on a lookout for some short reel content, and make sure to like it and stuff, so that more people find the podcast. And we'll just see you guys next week or later this week.
Yes, have a good week, guys.